my name is Nat, and I am back with a new game. So last July, as I was finishing development on Bluma, I got a new idea for a new game, and I wrote it down, and I wanted to get started immediately, but I thought it was really important to see through Bluma, give it its best chance, and I had a lot of encouragement from my wife as well to not start the new game. But as soon as I finished all the playtesting for Bluma and was ready for release, I started my new Unity project. The idea was for a co-op farming game where players could use their crops to make potions and defend their farm. It felt like a really solid loop that makes sense. Players use seeds to plant crops, crops to make potions, potions to kill enemies to get seeds. But as I've learned from making my first game, games are really easy to make in your head. Once you start actually implementing, that's when things get kind of tricky. Okay, so one of my biggest inspirations for this new game was Overcooked. And Overcooked, my wife and I have played so much together and with friends, and we absolutely love it. And initially in my head, the game would be like Overcooked during the day, and then at night, it would be more something like Hades. But there's a really sneaky issue with that mental model, and that's pacing. See, Overcooked thrives on chaos. Each level is a 3-minute frenzy that is frankly pretty stressful and results in people yelling at each other and missing orders and fires are starting, and that's honestly where a lot of the fun comes from. But the cooperation in my game needed to be different. In my game, I wanted a single match to last up to 30 minutes. So obviously I can't have a day-night cycle where every night players kill a bunch of enemies, really stressful, and then the day starts and it's really stressful still. Okay, so easy, I thought. I just won't include the timer during the day. Players could have as long as they wanted to finish their farming, and then whenever they're ready, they would start the night and the combat would begin. But that doesn't work either. At least, not completely. See, the timer in Overcooked is not just about creating the chaos, it's also about encouraging cooperation. The reason people are yelling at their teammates to come help them is because they don't have enough time to get all their tasks done. So it wasn't obvious to me how to reconcile this. How do I encourage players to work together without stressing them out too much? And then I realized that Overcooked doesn't just have a level timer, it also has micro timers. And this felt like the perfect compromise. I could just stress players out a teeny bit, and that would encourage the cooperation without making people feel like they're gonna explode. So before I started any development on the combat aspect, I made my whole spreadsheet of all my different potions, and this was honestly maybe the most fun part of the whole development process. I got to come up with all these fantastical crops with different magical effects and how the players could use them to defend the farm. But just like the day-night cycle, this was easier said than done. I started with the most basic crop I could think of, a health crop, and the most basic potion I could think of, a health potion. So combine a heartberry with another heartberry, and you get a heart drink. And the next crop I thought of was a poisonous mushroom that damages enemies. So combine a mush puff with another mush puff, and you get a poison potion. But what happens when you combine a heartberry with a mush puff? Here, what made the most sense to me was a cloud of spores that actually heals teammates. So here I had 3 unique potions, and I already started to understand some themes. The heartberry, when combined with other crops, would create some sort of health-related potion, whereas the mush puff, when combined with other crops, was kind of like an area expander. I continued like this until I had 6 different crops with 6 different specialties and 21 unique potions. I wanted each potion to feel deliberate but separate. I didn't want 2 potions to basically be 2 variations of the same thing. I wanted 21 truly unique effects. But the 21 potions that I started with are actually not the exact 21 potions that I have now, and that leads me to the last thing I wanted to talk about. Okay, so balancing this game has been tricky to say the least. Because first of all, there's balancing difficulty. Like all games, the difficulty has to be challenging enough to be interesting, but not so challenging that players get frustrated. In my last game, I had to do this with each of the puzzles. But a multiplayer game is a whole different beast, because now it needs to be balanced from 1 to 4 players and playtested from 1 to 4 players. And since it's a party game, it has to be approachable for people that don't play a lot of games, but it needs to have enough depth for streamers or more dedicated players. In other words, I want a low skill floor with a high skill ceiling. One way I did this is with the control scheme. So I tried to make as much of the game playable with 1 to 2 buttons. For example, during combat, you can just hold one of the buttons down and it will auto-fire and auto-aim for you. But intermediate level players can also use their special attack, which requires manual aiming. And even more advanced players can use the dodge button for extra mobility. Same goes for using the potions. Beginner players can just press the potion button and it will use whatever potion they currently have equipped. But more advanced players can cycle through their potions in the heat of battle and choose the exact potion they need to use in that given situation. This UI was actually inspired by Mario Kart Double Dash, where more experienced players can switch between their 2 items. I just had to adapt it to 3 items instead of 2. But it's not just balancing the number of enemies or the difficulty of the enemies, it's also balancing the economy. Making a game where the economy and the combat are so tied together means that any changes to the combat means players might get more seeds or less seeds, and I won't go through all the math here, but needless to say, making little changes can impact the game in many ways. The potions also need to be balanced. So there's 21 different potions, and each potion needs to be useful, but also roughly the same amount of fun to use. Anytime we're playing the game and we see that we tend to not use one of the potions, that's kind of a signal that, oh, maybe we should switch that potion out for something else. But even though there's like so many things to balance, this has been just so much fun to play. Like every night my wife and I will just fire up Mage Farm and play a round or 2 and just talk about all the things that need to be tweaked or changed. And I think making a puzzle game before was kind of missing that. Like when you make a puzzle game, you know all the solutions. Like don't get me wrong, making all the puzzles was so much fun. I love making puzzles. But Mage Farm has been like such a joy to test. It's genuinely so much fun to play even though I know how everything works. It's exactly the kind of game I wish existed, which I guess is why I'm making it. If you want to support me and the development of Mage Farm, you can wishlist it on Steam. It helps a ton. And if you want to help playtest Mage Farm, you can join my Discord where I'll be hosting playtests. I'll put all the links in the description. I really enjoy making this game, so please let me know if you want more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!